Hi, I'm Jason and welcome to another video. In this video I'm just going to give you a bit of a show and tell really. You can probably see by my desktop this isn't the usual desktop that I would present a video in. This desktop is a Raspberry Pi operating system desktop. Let me explain why I'm sort of demonstrating this. Some time ago, quite a long time ago actually, when the Raspberry Pi 5 came out, I went straight out and bought the version of it. I was quite excited, and then I realised soon after that maybe I'd made a mistake, because a lot of the forums were saying don't rush out and buy the Raspberry Pi 5 4GB version because there's an 8GB version coming out. Oh well, I thought I'll chuck it in the cupboard and I might use it for something later on. So my day-to-day secondary computer, which sort of sits alongside my work computer, the one that I access all my personal stuff with, I access my emails, I go on YouTube, I look at Facebook, is a HP EliteDesk G2 computer, which is an i7 processor. It's got 32 gigs of RAM, it's got half a terabyte hard drive, and it runs at something like, I don't know, 65 watts at idle. And when I thought about it, I thought, well, it's way too much power for what I actually do with it, because I just use it as a reference computer. So that's when I decided, okay, let's crack open the old Raspberry Pi 5 4GB and see how it fares compared to my secondary day-to-day reference computer. Now, all I needed it to do was to be able to do the things I just mentioned a minute ago, as well as print to my printer, scan to my scanner, and maybe send a few print jobs to my 3D printer. And I'm happy to say that it's managed to accomplish all of those things. And it runs at something like 8 watts, which compared to 65 watts at idle is just a massive difference in power consumption alone. So let me explain how I use this computer. What I've done to this particular Raspberry Pi is I have added an NVMe 128GB drive to it, and I did that by ordering something called an NVMe base, which allowed me to use that drive, and I've connected it up. I've printed a nice little case, and I've installed this native operating system that Raspberry Pi recommend, which is a 64-bit version of Debian Linux. So let me give you a quick tour. When you first install it, you have this internet web browser icon up here at the top left, and it comes with Firefox and Chromium, and you can choose which one is your native, and I've gone for Chromium. This suits me because I like Google. I like Google as a search engine. I'm able to put whatever favorite shortcuts up here. I've opted for the lazy way to access my webmail. Instead of installing a client, which I could have done by using Mozilla Thunderbird, I've just opted for the native web mail login that I use. And as you can see, I can access my mail with no problem. If I open up another tab, it takes me to another Google search window. So for example, I could search for Facebook, and I can log straight into my Facebook account because it does save all my passwords. You might have noticed a tab here called Octoprint. This is my 3D printer, which incidentally also has another Raspberry Pi 4 computer connected to it, which allows, I suppose, connection between my Windows computer or any device. I can contact my 3D printer and send print jobs to it. On top of that, I like to use software called Cura, which amazingly, I found I could install on the Raspberry Pi as well. This is Ultimaker Cura, which also allows me to drag and drop 3D STL models straight to the bed here, and I can then send them straight to the 3D printer. So I don't have to be at the 3D printer at all. I just need to make sure it's on, and I can send my jobs to it. Talking about printers, obviously the other thing was I wanted to be able to print to my laser printer, and if we go down to preferences and down to print settings, you can see here that I've added my Dell C1765 laser printer. Okay, this was a little bit of searching around to find the correct driver to do it, but once I did, it wasn't that much of a brain taxing task, and I can now successfully send print jobs to my printer from this Raspberry Pi. The other thing obviously I needed it to do was to be able to scan to my flatbed scanner, and there is a simple document scanner program that you can download. And although this takes some seconds to search for the scanner, even though it's plugged directly into the Raspberry Pi by USB, you can see it's only 10 seconds, 15 seconds it finds my scanner. I can then opt between whether I want to scan text or an image, and then hit the scan button, and then you can hear the scanner whirring up underneath my desk here, and then eventually it starts to do its first sweep to scan whatever I've got in the flatbed. And then when it's done, I can simply download it. Let's put it on my desktop. There it is, and I can open up the document. So far I've managed to be able to do all of the things that I would have done on my day-to-day reference computer with a tiny amount of the power that's been needed. The other important thing for me was to be able to access my network assisted storage drives, or my NAS, and if we see here in the file browser, you get the usual things. I've called my Raspberry Pi 5 a Pi5 desktop, and I've got downloads, documents, videos, pictures, music, etc. And then by modifying something called the fstab file, I've added entries in there to connect to my NAS drive on the network, so that every time it boots up I can access the 3 folders on my NAS drive that I'm always using. And then I've made them as shortcuts up here so we can see backup, media and projects. And just to give you an example, there is my media. I've got my movies, I've got my TV shows, I've got my pictures, or I can go and look in my backup folder if I want to make backups of stuff or access my documentation, and then my projects folder, which is projects that I'm currently working on right now. So all of this is accessible to me from a tiny little device, the Raspberry Pi, no bigger than a credit card. And okay, when you've added a few bits and pieces to it and printed a case, then it ends up looking like half the size of a brick sat on your desk, which is probably still 4 times smaller than the HP Elite desk which I currently use. And I'm so impressed with it, in fact, I think I'm going to actually use this in the garage as a reference computer, because I normally keep a laptop in there. I might put that in there and bolt a screen to the wall with this Raspberry Pi hanging on the back of it, and I might just very well go and buy another Raspberry Pi 5 and this time get the 8 gig version and do the same thing as a reference computer here. Anyway, one more thing before I go. You're probably wondering, screen recorder. You're obviously recording the screen on this Raspberry Pi 5, and yes, you're right, I am. And if you see in the top left hand corner there, I'm using something called Simple Screen Recorder, which is enabling me to record this screen at 1080p with my mic audio without any problems at all. Anyway, I hope you found this show and tell interesting. Thanks for watching.